Church, let me talk to you today about something that's going to shake some of your perspectives on relationships. I'm not here to talk about fairy tales. I'm here to talk about faith collisions. Because when God brings two people together, it's not always smooth. It's not always easy. It's not always clean. No, sometimes it's a collision, a divine impact, a crash course in purpose, power, and calling. You are not here by accident. And the people God brings into your life, especially the ones who shift your trajectory, they don't just show up randomly. They are not coincidences. They are divine appointments scheduled by heaven long before you had the maturity to recognize them. God does not operate on accident. He operates on assignment. Every person He allows to collide with your life is either part of your development or your deliverance. And when it comes to soulmates, it's not about timing, chemistry, or cute compatibility. It's about calling. You didn't just meet someone. You stepped into something that God had already written into your story. See, we love the idea of fate, but God doesn't deal in fate. He deals in purpose. That means He doesn't throw relationships into your life to see what sticks. He sends them on purpose, for purpose, to accomplish purpose. And often it doesn't feel like a romantic moment. It feels like disruption. Because when something divine invades something ordinary, it's rarely soft and smooth. It shakes things. It stirs things. It brings tension, pressure, and yes, even conflict. But that conflict isn't a sign of failure. It's often the proof that God is doing something bigger than your comfort zone. Some of us miss what God is doing because we're expecting someone to walk in and fit perfectly into the mold we've created in our mind. But God doesn't send people to fit your preferences. He sends people to fulfill His purpose. You ask for someone who understands you, who supports you, who makes you feel safe. And that's beautiful. But God goes deeper. He sends someone who will challenge your mindset, confront your dysfunction, and stand in agreement with the version of you that still hasn't fully emerged yet. God sends someone who won't let you stay stuck. That's why when they show up, it's not always instant fireworks. It's often deep work. You're wondering why it feels heavy, why it feels intense, why it feels like more than you expected. It's because it is more. It's a divine collision. God doesn't just want your heart to flutter. He wants your calling to flourish. So when someone walks into your life and pushes you toward growth, conviction, and greater faith, don't brush it off as coincidence. That's not random. That's God. When God sends the right person, and I mean God sent, not just good feeling, it may not look the way you thought it would. It might not match the list you made. It might even disrupt the plans you had. But it will unlock the potential He placed in you. It will pull something out of you that's been dormant. It will force you to confront things you've been avoiding. And that's why divine appointments don't always feel peaceful. Sometimes they feel like pressure. Because pressure forms diamonds. Pressure births destiny. The problem is we've been trained to think soulmates should arrive easily, make life easier, and fit us effortlessly. But in the kingdom, God sends partners, not pacifiers. He sends collaborators, not codependents. He sends people who come with keys to doors you didn't even know were locked. And sometimes it takes a collision, not a coincidence, for that kind of connection to manifest. We love to quote that the steps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord, but if our steps are ordered, then our stops are ordered too. Our delays, our detours, and the people we bump into along the way, all of it is orchestrated by the one who sees the end from the beginning. So that conversation you had that led to a deeper connection, that place you almost didn't go, where you met someone who would change your life, that wasn't random, that wasn't luck, that was heaven's strategy being executed in your daily steps. We must stop minimizing what God is maximizing. Stop calling something just timing when it was really divine timing. Stop labeling something random when it was really revelation. The relationships that shake you, stretch you, and speak to your spirit in ways words can't explain, those aren't accidents. It's a holy collision. It's not a maybe. It's a move of God. You didn't stumble into this. We love the idea of transformation, but most of us don't love the process it takes to get there. We pray for change. We ask God to make us better, stronger, wiser. But we rarely realize that the way God transforms us is often through collisions. He doesn't just send peace. Sometimes He sends people who interrupt everything we thought we understood about ourselves. And when it comes to soulmates, we imagine ease, but God uses tension. Imagine harmony, but God often allows friction. Because transformation doesn't come from comfort, it comes from impact. You don't get transformed just by sitting in church and hearing a good sermon. You get transformed when what you believe gets tested in real time. And one of the ways God does that is by bringing someone into your life who doesn't just agree with your strengths, they expose your weaknesses. They collide with the parts of you that you've protected. They bump into your pride. They confront your control. They run straight into the walls you've built to protect your past. And in that collision, something begins to shift. It's easy to call it conflict, but what if it's really construction? What if the tension between you isn't meant to push you apart, but to pull the real you out? Because a soulmate, a real God-sent, Spirit-assigned soulmate, is not someone who flatters your flesh. They're someone who feeds your future. And sometimes they do that by disrupting your dysfunction. You didn't even know how much of your identity was wrapped up in your independence until someone tried to partner with you. You didn't realize how wounded you were until someone loved you in a way that required you to receive it without suspicion. God doesn't transform you by giving you everything you want. He transforms you by giving you people who help you become who you were created to be. But that becoming begins with breaking. Breaking old habits. Breaking toxic patterns. Breaking generational cycles. And all of that starts when two lives collide. Not casually, but with force. Not softly, but with sacred disruption. That's where real change happens. That's where the masks start to fall off. That's where the real you starts to rise. You thought love was supposed to be easy. You thought soulmates were supposed to always get you. But what if the point isn't for them to get you? What if the point is for them to grow you? God didn't send someone to make you feel safe in your silence. He sent someone to pull out your voice, to confront your passivity, to mirror back your excuses and say, you're more than that. There's something deeper in you. There's something God wants to birth through you. Transformation doesn't start when you feel good. It starts when you're faced with the parts of yourself that need to change. And that rarely happens in isolation. It happens in interaction. It happens in collision. And sometimes those collisions hurt. Sometimes you walk away with a limp, like Jacob did when he wrestled with God. But he walked away changed, marked, transformed. And that's what a soulmate does. They wrestle with you, not against you, but with you, for the you that you haven't fully stepped into yet. Because what if the very thing you're trying to avoid, the clash, the disagreement, the emotional friction, is the exact thing God is using to transform you? What if the pushback you're feeling is divine pressure being applied to areas that were never meant to stay the same? You can't ask God to grow you and then get mad when he sends someone who doesn't let you stay small. You can't pray for purpose and then resist the person who is pulling you into it. Sometimes it's not about agreement, it's about alignment. And alignment doesn't always feel good. It means adjustments. It means shifting. It means learning how to move differently, speak differently, love differently. Because when God brings two people together for his purpose, the impact of that relationship is not measured in how easy it is, but in how much it alters both people involved. A collision shakes things loose. It stirs up buried pain, hidden pride, and unrevealed potential. It challenges the way you think, the way you pray, the way you expect to be loved. And in that challenge, there is change. Not just in your relationship, but in your identity, in your mindset, in your mission. That's why some of the greatest growth in your life won't come from sermons. It'll come from someone looking you in the eye and saying, you don't get to run anymore. You don't get to shut down. You don't get to shrink back from who you're becoming. We live in a world that's obsessed with preferences. What we like, what feels good, what matches our vibe, our energy, our expectations. We swipe left on anything that doesn't instantly fit the picture in our head. But when it comes to God-ordained relationships, the kind of connection that's not just emotional, but eternal, it's never built on preference. It's always built on purpose. And that difference changes everything. Because what you prefer will always be shaped by what you're familiar with, but what God purposes will be shaped by what you're destined for. You prayed for someone who checks every box. You listed out the height, the job, the temperament, the way they talk, the way they dress, the way they make you feel. But purpose doesn't care about boxes. Purpose is disruptive. Purpose is strategic. Purpose will send you someone who doesn't look like what you imagined, because they're designed for what God intends. And that kind of person won't always match your preference, but they'll align with your assignment. They won't just bring peace, they'll bring power into your life. They'll challenge you in the places where your calling needs to grow. God's not building your relationship around your comfort. He's building it around your calling. That means he will bring people into your life who don't pamper your ego, but provoke your elevation. They don't play into your patterns. They pull you out of them. They don't reinforce your excuses. They remind you of your identity. And that might not feel good at first, but it will grow you. Because purpose always calls you higher than preference ever will. Preference says, give me someone who makes me happy. Purpose says, give me someone who makes me holy. Preference says, I want someone who agrees with me. Purpose says, I want someone who sharpens me. Preference is about compatibility. Purpose is about completion. When God said in Genesis, it's not good for man to be alone, he didn't just mean man needed a buddy. He meant man needed help. Someone to come alongside him, not just for companionship, but for the mission. That means soulmates are not accessories. They're not upgrades, they are assignments. And when you treat a purpose partner like a preference, you will walk away from what was meant to transform you. We are so quick to reject what doesn't feel familiar. But sometimes God sends you something you've never seen before to take you somewhere you've never been before. If you're only focused on what you prefer, you'll miss what you're prepared for. God will give you what you need, not what you always understand. And sometimes what you need is someone who isn't impressed by your charm, but is committed to your character. If your relationship is based on preference, it will fall apart when that preference changes, because preferences are fickle. They shift with seasons. But purpose is foundational. It gives your relationship something to stand on when feelings fade and storms come. Purpose reminds you that this isn't about just being in love. It's about building something eternal. It's about impact. It's about legacy. It's about fulfilling a vision that's bigger than either of you alone. And don't get me wrong, God can work through attraction, chemistry, and connection, but if that's all there is, it won't last. The glue of a God-ordained relationship is not the butterflies. It's the burden you carry together, the mission you agree on, the spiritual weight you share, the prayers you fight through, the vision you chase. That's where true alignment is born. Not in shared taste, but in shared truth. We want someone who fits our life, but God sends someone who fits our future. And those two things don't always look the same. In fact, they rarely do. Because the future God has for you requires faith, not preference. It requires sacrifice, surrender, and sometimes even discomfort. But through that discomfort comes growth. And through that growth comes alignment with divine purpose. When purpose drives the relationship, you stop asking, how do they make me feel? And start asking, who am I becoming because of them? You stop chasing surface level validation and start recognizing spiritual transformation. Because they're not just loving you where you are, they're loving you toward where you're going. And if your relationship is rooted in purpose, it won't let you settle. It won't let you stagnate. It won't let you shrink. It will stretch you, call you, and equip you to become everything God spoke over your life. There is a powerful truth many miss when it comes to those life-changing encounters. The collisions we experience with others, especially soulmates, are not just chaotic interruptions, they are confirmations from God Himself. When two paths collide with intensity, it's often God's way of saying, this is it. It's confirmation that the person who has entered your life is not random or accidental, but ordained, assigned by a divine hand. Sometimes we search for signs, looking for peace or the absence of conflict. But God's confirmations often come wrapped in challenge, confrontation, and sometimes even confusion. That's because God's confirmations don't come to affirm your comfort. They come to affirm your calling. When you collide with someone who shakes your foundations, the natural reaction might be to pull back or run away. But what if that collision is actually God confirming the direction your life is meant to take? When the collision happens, it's a divine spotlight. God shining a light on something you need to see, someone you need to receive, or a purpose you need to pursue. Collisions are like the clap of thunder before a rainstorm. Loud, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. And just like thunder confirms the coming rain, the collision in your life confirms that God is moving, that destiny is unfolding. Too often we look for confirmation in silence, in moments of ease. But God often confirms His plans in the noise, in the messiness, in the tension, in the unexpected twists. When God brings a soulmate into your life, it's not always wrapped in a neat bow. It's a collision that disrupts your plans and forces you to reevaluate your path. And that reevaluation is confirmation that God is not only involved, but deeply invested in what He is doing through your connection. Think about the stories in Scripture. God rarely confirmed His promises with ease or comfort. Abraham was confirmed through waiting, wrestling with doubt and delay. Joseph was confirmed through betrayal and prison. Moses was confirmed through a burning bush and a calling that scared him. Each of these confirmations came through encounters that shook them to their core. And just like those biblical giants, your collision with a soulmate is designed to shake you, not to break you, but to confirm that you're on the right track. Confirmation isn't always about instant clarity. Sometimes it's about persistent nudging, repeated collisions, ongoing conversations that refuse to be ignored. God confirms by aligning your heart and the other person's heart in ways that go beyond what the world calls compatibility. It's a spiritual alignment, a divine connection that confirms you are not walking this journey alone. When two souls collide, it's God's way of telling you you're about to walk in something greater than yourself, and this person is part of that plan. When a collision confirms your calling, it means the relationship will demand more of you than comfort. It will demand faith, sacrifice, and growth. God's confirmation isn't an easy yes. It's a holy challenge. It's a yes that asks you to trust Him even when the path isn't clear. It's a confirmation that when you feel like walking away because the collision is too intense, you're actually being invited to lean in deeper. And don't mistake confirmation for perfection. Just because God confirms a relationship doesn't mean the road will be smooth. Confirmation is about assurance in the midst of imperfection. It's about knowing that despite the struggles, the questions, and the unknowns, God is orchestrating something significant. It's the peace that surpasses understanding even when your feelings are unsettled. You might be wondering, how do I know if this collision is confirmation and not just chaos? The answer is in the fruit and the Spirit. If the collision leads you closer to God, if it produces growth, forgiveness, and faith, it's confirmation. If it calls you to love harder, serve deeper, and surrender more, that's confirmation. If it strengthens your spirit and sharpens your purpose, that collision is God's stamp of approval. God confirms through people because relationships are His tools to shape us. A soulmate collision is God's way of placing a mirror before your soul. A reflection not only of who you are, but of who you are becoming. That reflection confirms the areas where you need healing, the places where you need to grow, and the callings you need to step into. When God confirms a relationship, He confirms your identity and your destiny simultaneously. The collision is also confirmation that you are not alone in your journey. Sometimes God brings someone into your life to confirm that He has not forgotten you, that He is still faithful, and that He is working all things together for your good. When you feel isolated or uncertain, the collision with a soulmate is a divine confirmation that God is still writing your story and you're about to enter a new chapter. God's confirmations are often unconventional. They don't always fit into the neat boxes we want to put them in. They don't always come with clear signs and easy answers. Sometimes the confirmation is the very collision that feels like disruption, but is actually divine orchestration. It's God's way of shaking you awake, breaking you free from complacency, and positioning you for the purpose He has planned. When God orchestrates a collision, it's never random. It's a divine appointment meant to transform, confirm, and align you with your purpose. Embrace the disruption, trust the process, and know that these sacred collisions are the sparks that ignite your destiny and lead you into the fullness of God's plan.